Hello again, everybody. Chris Lee of Vandy Sports here, joined by Luke Wyatt. This is the usual roundtable podcast. The Vandy Sports podcast is part of the 440 Sports Network. It is presented by our friends at Anchor Impact. And boy, this is the future of college athletics, especially after the case in East Tennessee this week. Help the Commodores thrive. Contribute now to Anchor Impact. Go to the site anchorimpact.com. Become a member over there. You can see our exclusive content. We've done interviews with athletes. Vandy Nation, this is your opportunity to get closer than ever before, gain access to unmatched exclusive content, and be part of the future of Vandy Athletics collectives. They're more important than they've ever been, and support Vanderbilt. They are having a big role in getting the athletic department and its programs up to competitive shape. So support those who support our podcast and help add to the success of the Commodore athletic programs. All right, our content this year for basketball brought to you by the Wash House. Are you dreading laundry day? Is it stealing time to do the things you truly enjoy? Let the laundry professionals at the Wash House take care of that for you with 2 convenient locations in the greater Nashville area. Just drop off your dirty laundry. Our professional attendants will give you back the one thing you can never have enough of, and that is your time. Within 24 hours, you can pick up your nicely folded, fresh, clean laundry, ready to be put away. Check out washhouseclean.com. Stop in today. Get your time back. Baseball season brought to you by our friends at the Murfreesboro Pure Milk Studio, which is presented by the Murfreesboro Pure Milk Company. It's a family-owned third-generation milk and ice cream distribution company located in Murfreesboro, a partnership that began 50 years ago with Purity Dairy in Nashville to provide purity milk and ice cream to consumers in Middle Tennessee and Georgia. They now serve Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama, Chattanooga, North Georgia. Today, they supply grocery stores, convenience stores, others with Purity products, as well as Mayfield, Nestle, Haagen-Dazs ice cream. For more information, visit their website at npmci.com. Love my Purity ice cream. I'm giving up ice cream for Lent because you got to give up something you love, and that's my choice. So, and got laundry piling up around here too. Need to call Stephen Andrews and Wash House. Anyway, thank you to those who support our show. Thank you to Luke Wyatt for joining us today. Luke, we got some recent baseball and basketball to talk. Commodores notched victories in baseball over Indiana State 20-4. Yesterday, as we do this on Wednesday morning, Vanderbilt will have a game with Evansville today, weather permitting. And then the big win in basketball last night in Fayetteville. And then we'll get into the mailbag because, boy, people got some questions. Let's start with baseball. An interesting time. I still believe in this pitching staff, but, boy, it has blown some leads of late.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the lineup a little bit in flux. Jack Bolger, when I was watching that game Sunday, sure looked like a guy that pulled a hamstring. That guy confirmed, sounds like yesterday. That's going to sideline him for a while, I think. You had a new outfield with Jacob Humphrey, Calvin Hewitt. Humphrey was great yesterday. You got Chris Maldonado still nursing an injury at first, so R.J. Austin slides from the outfield to first base. You got all kinds of stuff going on with baseball. Where are you with this team?
Well, with the week that was when we blew a 6-run lead, I think it was, and a 5-run lead to Gonzaga and then one against Dayton. It was a frustrating week for sure, but I start looking at the depth of this team, and I'm so excited about that. I think let's just take last year. If you lose a guy like Bolger that really puts a huge ding in you, and Jack was playing well, don't get me wrong, but when you have a guy like Humphrey that can come in and do what he did yesterday, and the bench that we talked about, Chris, in our kind of a pregame thing or pre-season thing we did, when you have a team that you can reach down in the hat and pull out some really talented kids. And I know Corbs wants to give those veterans all they have, but they've been put on notice that he'll go youth if he has to. Same thing with the pitchers. Some disappointing outings, the bases on balls, and then we had that just crazy inning where the wheels came off. Those can't happen to great teams. I think right now Vanderbilt is a good baseball team. They're not great, but I do think that this will be a team that will be better and better as the season moves forward.
Yeah, you look at them statistically, and you got, and I'm not picking on 10, but like playing Albany, some of these teams, Texas A&M's played Manhattan. These are teams that you can crush like a grape. The teams that Vanderbilt's played on the weekend, Gonzaga, FAU, are teams that you're in and out pretty competitive in decent baseball leagues. It's not the SEC, it's not even the ACC, but those are teams that have got decent programs. No, I think the midweek last week was disappointing. You would have liked to see Vanderbilt put the hammer down, certainly, and not blow the lead against Dayton. And the Eastern Kentucky game also a little bit underwhelming. But I think that the offense, I mean, it's hard for me to complain. This is the team that scored, 81 runs across
Yeah.
9 games. That's 9 runs a game. That'll play. Now, they're not going to do that in normal competition in the SEC. But, on base percentage 424, slugging percentage 508. The pitching is where people have questions. I'm still of the firm belief that the pitching staff is really, really good, or has got the potential to be. The way that I look at pitching, I mean, staff ERA is more important when you don't have depth. I kind of look at a team and evaluate pitching based on top 8 to 10 arms. And right now, if you look at this team through that lens, if you assume the guys that have been blowing leads are not going to be part of that, which it may play out that way, it may not be, but I think they're going to have enough guys to where the pitching doesn't really concern me. Now, I do want them to be more aggressive. So I feel like they get ahead in counts and they just nibble sometimes. And I don't know if that's pitchers not executing pitches or if that's the call from the dugout or what it is. That drives me insane at times, but I'm still – the hitting has outperformed the pitching so far, but I'm still bigger on the pitching than I am the hitting.
Yeah, I think hitting wise, we're going to be like Jaden Davis is. We're going to be a doubles machine. I think this team's going to hit a lot of gappers, a lot of line drives. You got a bunch of kids that fit the same mold. So I'm not
Yeah.
really worried about offense. Now, will we lead the league in home runs? No, but that's okay. And pitching wise, I mean, to me, the best pitcher so far has been J.D. Thompson. Not just because of yesterday, but he's had 3 outings now, and he has looked terrific in all of them. He's been able to control his slider. He's the kind of kid that just pounds the zone. Indiana State, that's a good baseball team. They came in.
Yes.
They had beaten Louisville. They beat Michigan State. That we're not playing little sisters of the poor, and it's going to get even tougher this weekend when we play 3 good teams down in Texas.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, Indiana State's a team that hosted a regional a year ago, a team that beat Vanderbilt last year, I think, pretty decisively in a midweek game.
10 to
Yeah, and my thing, like, I have not really liked the fielding, even when this team was fielding 990 before the Sunday meltdown, I think, against Gonzaga. But that can be very misleading. I just didn't think they were making a lot of plus plays in the field. I'm not picking on either Bolger or Leneve, but I don't really like those as your corner options out there at once. That sort of resolved itself a little bit with Bolger getting hurt. I'm not saying they're a better team without Jack Bolger or Troy Leneve, but both of them at once at the corner when you got R.J. Austin, who's athletic kid, but it's his first time playing center field. I just don't think their outfield's made a lot of plays for them. Now, you got Vastine at short that's just – it's not been what he's normally been. I think that will take care of itself. You got a revolving door at first base. You do have Jaden. Now, the surprise, Jaden Davis has been locking down second every day. I did not think that was going to happen. And I think you got a premium defender at third in Diaz, who did have a big hiccup the other day. But I felt for a while that you'd probably either see Humphrey or Hewitt in the outfield, or maybe both. You saw them out there both yesterday, and look, the win was the win helped a lot with some of the offense, but they also hit the ball hard too.
Yeah, I mean, the wind blew for both teams. So, yeah, the one kid that I'm not sure where he stands with Corbs and the team is, and it seems like the odd man out that played a lot for us last year in big innings is Matthew Polk.
Yeah.
Not sure whether he's just not showing a lot in the cages or during practice, but he hasn't given him much opportunity. Now, again, that's a good sign because you're talking about a kid who played in 75% of the games last year, probably or more, and he can't sniff the field. So that's a good sign. Again, going back to the offense, we dropped 3. D1 pushed us down to number 9, and I agreed with that. But this time of year, I don't think Corbs or anybody over there is concerned about rankings. I know we as fans, we as fans do, but to me, the formula is you get to 37 wins, you're going to host a regional. Sometimes 36 wins, and this team would have to go just above 500 in the conference to do that.
This is a different team than I've ever seen. I've covered all of them but one under him, and I've never seen one with this many parts that were. Well, I could see them playing this guy, or I could see them playing that guy. Usually they've got some parts, but there's a little separation. And I like it because what happens when you start getting guys hurt, which happens, they've already had their leadoff hitter and left fielder go down. Well, they plug a guy in, they score 20 runs in 6 innings yesterday.
Yeah.
6 offensive innings, I guess. And yeah, I mean, I think to me, I'm more concerned. And I think he's messing around here. But I thought it was very interesting yesterday when Andrew DeCanich threw a mop-up roll with the 16-run lead or whatever it was. Because to me, I thought he'll start the Evansville game, and they're not going to start him tomorrow, obviously. That, to me, tells me, all right, they're giving him kind of a bullpen session in real time in preparation to pitch this weekend.
I agree with that. And I'm not sure today. I've had two schools of thought on today against Evansville. Will this just be we pitch 4 or 5 guys a couple of innings, or will we go, is David Horn back to where he can pitch? I'm not sure. You may know.
No, and I haven't been at the ballpark to ask for the most part. I'm in the middle of it seems like we got a kids ball game or event every other night. So Billy and Joey have been there more than I have. But I was one of the other thoughts I had was I wonder if that's setting up David Horn to pitch tomorrow.
Maybe. I know
today as we speak. Yeah.
Yeah, Corbs was hinting that he was close. So one other thing about the Bulger injury, when I was leaving and I was at the game, I ran into Scotty Madison as we were walking out, and he actually saw it when it occurred when he rounded first. And he said, Luke, a guy that's built like Bulger, it could be a while because he said thick, short muscles are built. It's like concrete in there. So let's hope the best for Jack because he was off to a great start, hitting 367. And even though there's been criticism of him being in the leadoff spot, he'd really done a good job there. Had made contact most of the time, very few strikeouts. So I hate it for Jack, but I think he'll get back in maybe 3 or 4 weeks.
Back to the pitching side, I think a rotation of if they can get Holton healthy, and I don't know that I'd throw Holton more than 70, 75 pitches right now, whatever that looks like from week to week. You want him healthy at the end.
Right.
But I like him. Futrell's a great third option, as good as just about anybody's going to have. And some nights it's, he's going to face a team that hits a lot of fly balls and some of them get out. Some nights it's going to be he goes 7 innings, walks nobody, gives up, scatters 6 hits and pitches 1 or 2 run ball, and they're going to win going away. I really like DeCanich in that other spot. And I think you could go Grayson Carter. If you just look at the stats on the year, well, he's walked 7 guys in 7 innings. In 6 innings, excuse me. Well, that was all in that first start when the umpires made a judgment call, your delivery's illegal, and I think it screwed him up. He went out last week. I think this kind of got lost with some distance, but him going out hitting 101 to 103 with 8 straight pitches.
Yes.
And more importantly than that, not walking anybody, that was a big, big step.
He threw 3 consecutive pitches to a batter that are unhittable. Yeah. It was, like you said, 101, 102, 103 stair steps, and they were all from the ankles and between the ankles and the kneecaps. If he pitches like that, buddy, we've got something. And I'll go back to Grayson on this. I think, and you hit on the Carter Holton thing with him being limited in his pitches. I think you're going to see when we get to, say, Auburn in a couple of weeks. I think you'll see the Friday night starter be Carter, He'll go the 75 pitches, whether that's 3 or 4 innings. Then you go to Grayson Carter.
Yeah.
You hold it to Carter. I think that's the Friday night plan. I'll tell you, I agree with Dukanich, but J.D. Thompson, you can't ignore. And he's pitching him. And you go back to last year in the SEC tournament, the job he did against Florida. That kid is pitching himself into a Sunday starter if he doesn't watch out.
Yeah, yes and no. I feel like this is going to be the situation where he does where that guy that comes in on your midweek games and he's locking it down. Is he's going to say, hey, that works in that role. And I don't think that you can put Thompson on the weekend because you do that in Futrell, then you got 2 soft tossing lefties back to back. I think it works better the way that he's rolling it out there right now. So I'm agreeing with you on the 2 Carters, Carter Holton, Grayson Carter. I think that ought to be the Friday night plan. I think that's workable. Saturday, you can go. I would go Dukanich. You got Cunningham. You got Brendan Cyber available for bulk relief. You got Ginther, Kranzler, guys that can give you stuff in bits and pieces and throw strikes. You got Ethan McIlvain for high leverage spots. You got, maybe Leboki for an inning. It kind of fell apart in the second inning. I mean, you got Miller Green. You got more guys than you know what to do with. So I think if Futrell's a guy that can get into the 6th or 7th inning on Sunday, the pitching is the least of my concerns. I don't like the way that they've always assembled it, but the Dukanich getting an inning yesterday in garbage time was interesting and suggests to me that they are looking in a different direction. I think Bryce Cunningham is miscast as a starter. Feels like to me like he's just after, maybe inning 3 or so, it just seems to drop off with him. So I think you've got a role for him in here somewhere without having to push him.
Chris, you look at that pitching staff of 18 guys when Horn gets back. You're going to find of those 18, there'll be 6 guys play themselves out of roles. But I think you're still going to have, when we start conference play, 10 or 12 guys you can rely on. I mean, I don't know that you're going to have a closer like Maldonado was. I'm not sure who that'll be yet. I think they kind of wanted to be McIlvain and Kranzler from the way they pitched it. I really love the Kranzler kid. Boy, I love his attitude on the mound. Seems under control. I know he gave up the big hit the other day, but he could have sued for non-support that game.
Yeah. Oh, and I like Cyber too. Cyber's thing is he's a strike thrower, but he's not giving up a hit in 6 innings. So, I mean, I think guys that can give you multiple innings, you can count on to throw strikes, or guys I love to have on my roster, and they got 4 or 5 of those guys. I feel like.
I think Sawyer Hawks will come around. He had a bad first outing, but I think he's proven he can pitch.
Anything else on baseball before we hit hoops and then the mailbag?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Basketball. Vanderbilt goes to Fayetteville. Jerry Stackhouse seems to have Eric Musselman's number. Season high 85 points. Vanderbilt not broken 80 all year. Good games by the backcourt. Magnon and Lawrence combined for 43. Van Ellen Lubin had a top 2 or 3 game easily for him this year. I mean, Arkansas had been playing well, but to go on, I mean, that's 3 in a row against Arkansas and 2 in a row against in Fayetteville.
Well, let's look at our 3 conference wins and what's the common denominator. Tyron playing like Tyron did last year. Ezra doing what he normally does anyway. But the big key, Van Ellen Lubin. He had 25 victory against Texas A&M. Last night, I think he had 19 and 10 or 19 and 12. When Vin shows up like that and plays aggressive, we have a chance because now you've got 3 guys scoring. So, I love it. I listened to Ezra with Kevin Ingram and Tim Thompson last night, and just hearing the joy, that made me happy just for that kid. We've said it on here multiple times. There's other great kids on that team, but I really, really like Ezra Magnon, and he'll be dearly missed, whoever the coach is and whoever runs his team next year. He's a great basketball player.
Look, there's a lot of criticism in there about Jerry Stackhouse in the program right now, and they're more than fair. and we'll probably get into a lot of that in the mailbag. But one thing that cannot be said of him, and I'm not sure everybody's come through that program as a Boy Scout, but I think that they mostly have brought in good kids that are pretty easy to root for. And I was happy for the guys last night that they were able to get the win.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to look at the big picture. We're sitting on 8-20 and 3-12. So it is what it is from that standpoint, and decisions have to be made and made accordingly. So nothing personal against Jerry, but that part of it has to move on.
Yeah. Anything else on basketball before I get us into the mailbag? Because I think there's going to be a lot of questions about that.
Unless I'm losing my mind, there was a game time change on LSU. We were going to play at noon, but now we're playing at 2:30. Am I correct on that, Chris, or do you have something different?
I'm looking at my calendar and I had the opposite. Let me check. Hang on a minute. Because you're right. There was a game time. I actually have an auto calendar that puts those on my calendar, and I had two different games up yesterday. I mean, the two different, like they were playing a doubleheader with LSU.
No.
So I may have erased the one that, well, there's one way to find out. Let me get there.
Yeah, on the Vanderbilt at 2:30, and it had noon up until about a few days ago.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So let's see. Yeah, 2:30 is the correct time. It's on the website.
Okay.
All right. The mailbag is presented by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call, 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. Guest line presented by John Levin of the Mater Nexus Government Contracts Group. Mater Nexus advises government contractors on all aspects of their needs with a proud focus on matching legal solutions to business needs. They got their very own Chris Lee. Give them a call. They got a ton of people and can help you with your needs there. All right. Let's go to the mailbag. We got a bunch of questions. I don't think we're going to get to them all. Let's go football first, and I'll keep them topical by sport. V. Period, can you tell us about the new offensive line coach, and will the wide receiver core be improved this season compared to last season?
Offensive line coach, I don't have a clue. I won't meet him till I get over there for spring ball. But the receiver room, here's my take on the receiver room. And I'm not going to say names on here. I don't want to point out certain kids, but you can probably figure it out. I feel like there was a really bad vibe in that receiver room. As talented as it was, you had kids that were unhappy for whatever reason. And I think that spread throughout that room and the locker room. And I think this year that won't be the case. You got a couple of big kids coming in at wide receiver. So I think the end result will be better than last year, even though we had some splash plays with London and Junior. I look forward to what this new staff, what Coach Beck and Jerry Killen, the offensive side of the ball, will do with this receiver room. So I feel like it'll be as good or better.
I think, okay. Ann Arbor Door, we need a good Coach Woody story. That's the last football question.
If you want to hear it. I think I've told you before, Chris, and you liked it. So it's PG-13, but we can do it on here.
Go for it.
Okay. We're playing Tennessee in Knoxville. A lot of fans will remember this. It was when Woody was our head coach and Fulmer was at Tennessee, and we lose late 17-10. I think Peyton Manning ran a naked boot for a touchdown, and we lose late against a nationally ranked Tennessee team. Well, I'm walking out to say good game or whatever to Roger Frazier, the Tennessee's equipment guy, and happened to be right beside Woody, who was meeting Fulmer. And Fulmer tapped Woody on the shoulder and said, "Woody, boy, your kids really play hard. What a great effort." And Woody was frustrated from the loss, and he goes, "Yeah, if I had your kids, I'd beat your ass by 100." So that's
there was not a filter with him, was there? I never covered him, but
no. Let's just say Woody could sometimes, God love him, he could be a little inappropriate.
Yeah.
But it was back in those. Chris, he because of his personality and how fun loving he was, he got away with a lot of stuff that you or I couldn't get away with.
Sure. Okay, let's go. baseball bros, and we hit this earlier, but if you want to elaborate, go ahead. What's Ducanich's role with this team? He didn't pitch all weekend, then comes in tonight at 24 to game to finish off. His stuff is first-round talent, but he's not been given the opportunity to really improve himself so far. Yeah, have at it. I think we hit most of it, but if you've got something else.
No, I'll just say the first weekend against Auburn, look for it to be Holton, Futrell, and Ducanich. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, and I'll add this too. In the past, they could kind of mess around and find combinations. I don't think this team has got a ceiling above the rest of the conference like it has in the past. I think you got 11 teams that can make a regional in this league. Most of them are on the schedule.
Isn't that crazy?
I don't think you got a big margin of big margin of error, big margin of injury. You have one there, I think. But point being, like you look up and you lose 5 straight 1-run games, and that could be the difference in, being a 2 seed in a regional or not being there at all. It could be the difference in, hosting and not hosting, or being a national seed and not hosting. I mean, I think that the competitive balance in the league is there this year. There's a lot of really good rosters, and I wonder if that's how Tim's going to approach it. If he's just going to say, hey, I can't afford to mess around and tinker and give guys chances. I'm going to have to put my best guys in the rotation. I think Ducanich, to me, I think is one of those. We will see where that goes. All right. I think we got one more baseball question. McG-Door13, understanding this is still very early based on player talent, potential, and performance so far. Give me your first SEC weekend. Starting pitchers, I think we named those. First 3 pitchers out of the bullpen, I would go maybe McIlvain, Cyber. Who am I missing here?
Carter.
Carter. I mean, Ginther's in there too. Yeah, I think something like that. Man, it's something very heavily tilted towards young guys, isn't it?
Miller Green.
Kranzler.
Yeah.
Kranzler. Good grief. Not the discussion I thought we'd be having a couple of weeks ago, but that's where we are. Starting lineup and positions. All right, let's go position by position. Obviously, it's Espinal's job. Now, here's the thing. I'm wondering, what do you do at backup catcher now that Bolger's hurt?
I think Logan Potito will catch the midweek games.
Yeah, I think so too.
Allen catch all 3 weekend.
Ooh, that's a lot.
That is a lot. And maybe later in the year when you get Bolger back, you'd have Bolger catch one of them.
Yeah. First base, I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
With that hamstring now, you may not see Bolger behind the plate the whole year. If it's a bad strain or slight tear or whatever it may be, that's risky to put him at catcher with a bad hamstring. Yeah. You're going to see more DH out of him than anything moving forward, I would think.
First base feels like a Maldonado situation.
It does.
He's banged up.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead, Chris. I apologize.
No. I was done.
Oh, okay. Now, R.J. Austin's played 6 different positions already. I think he's hasn't played catcher, shortstop, and pitcher. So, I think he loves the athleticism with R.J. When Maldonado gets healthy, you're correct, it will be. But I'm not sure who the odd man out will be in the outfield when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we know short and third. We know second. If it's not Davis, it'll be Koziel. Koziel looks, I think he started every game, and that kid can hit. I know he started slowly, but that kid could hit. You saw it yesterday. So then the outfield, you go some combination of Bolger, Leneve, Hewitt, Austin, Humphrey, and it may. I'm going to bet. I'm going to make a call knowing Tim Corbin that the lineup that you saw against Indiana State, it is going to be exactly what it was for Evansville.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's we scored 20 runs in 6 innings. Let's not mess around with this here.
You thinking Koziel stays at DH then and doesn't see any second base?
I don't know. He hasn't seen second base yet, has he?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Again, Jaden, the book on Jaden was, and I saw him some when he played travel ball. was average fielder, great hitter, and
Yeah.
right now he's done everything. He knock on wood, he hasn't made an error. He hasn't made any spectacular plays, but he's made all the plays in front of him. So you're right. I don't think he'll touch that, but I think Kojal at some time will get a shot at second base, maybe during a midweek game or something.
Yeah, and the info I had going into a couple weeks before the season was that Kojal was the better defender, and so I was a little surprised. I talked to somebody close to it, said, "Hey, I think they're going to trot Davis out there opening day at second." I got some pushback on that, but Source was right on that one, and that's not what I would have thought either. I think that went against perception, but it's how they lined up. So I think if we hit I mean, you still got, Polk. Here's another one. What do you do with Braden Holcomb?
Yeah, first of all, he's going to be that kind of guy that if you're down 3 runs and you got a couple guys on the 7th, 8th, or 9th, he's going to be the first guy you go to. Austin Fork got an at bat as well the other day. Those guys may be limited to pinch hitting roles and playing some DH in first base.
Yeah, Holcomb did a couple of things that could have been classified as showing up the umpire the other day, and then had probably the most costly defensive misplay of the season, and was pinch hit for the next inning and has not been seen from since. So I think there could be a little bit of a. I know they could use his bat in there, and I don't think he's exiled to the bench for good. I'm not saying that, but I think there could be a little bit of a sit and learn and play there.
Well, Corbs always has teaching lessons, and that was one the other day. There's something I mentioned about that inning, though, that I thought about that I don't know if you noticed it, Chris. That's the time of day when that sun comes down and you can't see anything.
Yeah, that's true.
That Vastine dropped and the one Holcomb dropped right off the edge of their gloves, I think those were both sun related. Now, it's no excuse. Have been. You still got to make the play. It's no excuse. You know the situation. But that inning was just everything that could go wrong did. So,
yeah. Vastine's was not a poor play. I mean, I think he had a pretty good leap, and it just ticked off his glove. I mean,
yeah,
3 inches lower, and we're probably having a conversation about them winning a game, but that's baseball for you. The Diaz play, he makes that probably 9 times out of 10. He's great at making that tough play off that in-between hopper, as good as anybody I've seen here. Yeah, the Holcomb play, and then there was another one in there too, but anyway. Let's see what else was in that question. I think we've hit all these at different times. So, all right.
Question, Chris, that we had someone about wanting to know my 3 wishes. I want to just go ahead and get that one out because I told him I'd tell him 3. It's just one wish, and all those 3 combined to one: unlimited NIL for Vanderbilt athletics.
Okay. Yeah.
That answers that one.
The rest, we got basketball, we got a coaching situation, we got what's the chance this person's fired or that person's fired. We got the Twitter blow up with a certain member of the Black and Gold Club that is, I think, got fans as united as I've ever seen. Maybe I just throw that all into one topic and let you go because, yeah.
Well, look, I'll just say this without mentioning names, and we all know who we're talking about here. Vanderbilt Athletics needs all the fans they can get, whether it's sidewalk alumni, former players, players that have moved back into town from out of town, all the people that are not all the people, but people that have transplanted here to Nashville from California and some of the other states. Vanderbilt needs to be cultivating that. And when you start having someone that's closely associated with the AD start slamming everybody, I mean that's just idiotic. It's not smart. they have to understand too, the Vanderbilt fan base is an older fan base, and they've already been some of us that have died out. And I'm myself, even though I was employed there for 40 years, I'm also an older fan base. I stick with them for one reason only. Those administrators and coaches come and go, but those kids at Vanderbilt, for the most part, and I know because I worked with them, are great, bright-eyed kids who deserve support and should be able to have home football games. And when you have people, like I said, making comments like that, it's just because you have a personal friend that, look, I love Clark Lee. Clark and I are good friends. But if Clark goes 2-10 next year, they're probably going to replace him if things don't look any better. You go 2-10 and get boat raced 10 times. Clark's my friend, but Clark will have to move on. And Clark knows that. I'm not saying anything I wouldn't say to Clark. But when you start defending something that's indefensible, that just looks terrible.
I know Candace was on social media that day because I saw her retweet the women's basketball score. I mean, that seemed like a layup to me. All you do is say, hey, we appreciate all the fans. We're glad you're all here. That seemed like a layup to me. Why did that not happen?
It's the nose in the air mentality. I'm better than you. You can't tell me anything. I know more than you. That they better quit that, or the 3,000 they got for basketball will drop to 1,500, and the 10,000 that they get in football games will drop to 5,000.
Yeah, I think 1,500 for basketball might be high.
Yeah,
at this point. All right, where does that go? Because man, there's a lot of stuff in the air about that one this morning.
We've heard different things about buyouts. My sources tell me it was over between 8 and 10 million. I've heard even higher. So I don't know. But I do know this. It doesn't matter what the buyout is. You have to make a move. The only thing that would keep it from not happening is, and I don't know if you remember this, Chris, remember the SEC tournament when Georgia made the run and won 5 in a row and last tornadoes hit? I can't remember. Who was the coach at Georgia then?
I think that was the Dennis Felton year. I think that was a team that went 4 and whatever in the regular season and then ripped 5 in a row off to make the NCAAs.
Correct. That's the only thing that would save Jerry Stackhouse is to win 5 SEC tournament games in a row. That's it. That's what should be the only thing to save it. So, and hey, look, nothing against Jerry. We tried it with Malcolm Turner's hire, and then Candace extending him. There was no reason for that extension. We all know that. He had his opportunity. Last year, I was all for it. I thought he did a great job, and I thought this year was going to be different. But it wasn't from the get-go. When you come out against Presbyterian, team you've never lost to in history, and games like that, that put and everything was the same as last year at the beginning. You can look at last year's non-conference, this year's non-conference, same stuff. Fiddling with lineups. Looked like no preparation. No enthusiasm for playing the games. And when you get to 5 and 8 non-conference, you're already behind the 8 ball before you play a conference game. So then the pressure comes, and it just all falls apart.
I've thought all along that the situation was that what you thought it is, an $8 to $10 million buyout situation. Now, I will not tell you everything I know. I need to protect some confidences for some background. But I will tell you this. There's a perception in the coaching industry that the contract is low $4 million a year, and then it runs through 2030, and that they would owe 100% of that to get rid of them. So do the math on that. There's also a scenario I've heard that's in between where you are and where that is. I mean, either way, even if you have to pay him $8 million, my goodness, that's ridiculous.
Well, Chris, I said it on the board. If that's the case, if you're not as an athletic director, and let's just say it's Candace's decision. I don't know that it is. I don't know if it's Daniel Diermeier's or a combination of the both. But if that's malpractice, if you gave that man that much money and you got to pay him that much, it's malpractice. So then the athletic director should go, in my opinion. And I don't care if that's Candace, Todd Turner, Paul Houlihan, David Williams. It doesn't matter. That's a silly decision made on a friendship thing instead of a professional decision.
Would there be any buyouts? I mean, he's got 19 staff members. Do those guys, I know those guys typically I wouldn't think would get much of a buyout, but it's Vanderbilt.
I'm sure there's something with assistant coaches. Now, a lot of those guys, Chris, are very lowly paid employees. They're not, analytic people and that type of thing and different roles. So you got about 3 or 4 coaches that will probably get buyouts, I would think, that you'd have to. But
I know the staff payroll is or was at one point, I think, second in the league behind Kentucky.
Yeah, that's accurate
for everybody. Yeah, how do I put it? I know this probably sounds crazy, but I have an idea based on how Vanderbilt works, how this situation could have got to that point if it is towards the middle or the upper end of the bad ranges. My only question is like what approval did that have or not have to get above the athletic department? I mean, if I knew buyouts and who signed off on what, I would love to know that because that would form my opinions about a lot of things.
Yeah, if Daniel Deermeyer is well aware of what the extension was and knew that we were putting ourselves in this type of peril or possibility, then he's to blame as well, obviously.
Sure.
If Candace walks up and says, "Hey, we're going to pay our track and field coach $10 million a year," and he says okay, then that's on Daniel. So
Well, everybody had a lot to say about what the money Malcolm spent when they came to that parting, which I've heard resignation, I've heard firing. The more recent details I've heard seem to indicate they just drove him crazy, and he's like, "I want out of here." And then they paid him a large sum of money not to talk about it. I mean, hey, pick a lane. If we're going to be upset about spending with one AD, let's, and one chancellor, which that got Zeppos fired. Let's be consistent.
Yep, absolutely.
So, yeah, I don't know where else to go with basketball. I'm exhausted by all of it. I just am. I mean, I wake up every day and it's just like, this is depressing.
Well, I think the thing that bothers me more than anything, Chris, is number one, Vanderbilt basketball had been its bell cow. Before Corbin got there with baseball, Vanderbilt basketball was the place to be. And I know everyone's going to say, well, yeah, but that was pre-Predators and pre-Titans. No, that's not true. That's not true. I can remember 10 years ago that place being packed, beating a number 1 Tennessee team. And the place was full of Vanderbilt fans. So it's not, and you can go back to the history of it, obviously the 70s with the F Troop and all that. Vanderbilt basketball was the place to be for a long time. And it can be again because basketball is winnable. Football is a tough nut to crack. We all know that. It's going to always be a tough nut to crack. But Vanderbilt basketball, both men's and women's, can be at the top 4 of the league year in and year out if they want it to be.
Well, all right, throw Kentucky out of this because Kentucky's always going to be passionate and win and all those things, and that's never going to change. And Arkansas, unless Arkansas is just bad or mediocre, that's a place that they fill the building and everybody's just crazy over it. The other schools haven't necessarily fallen in line with that, but I look around arenas just about everywhere in the league. Even Georgia's drawing people now. Auburn is selling out. I mean, who would have said 15 years ago Auburn is going to be a hotbed of basketball?
Well,
you got passion and enthusiasm just about every other place in the league but this one.
And not to compare things, but I'm going to do this anyway. Vanderbilt has always been behind in everything. Facilities. It used to be coaches' salaries. That's no longer the case, but it used to be. So now we wait till everybody else gets interested in something, and now we're behind in that. You know what I mean? We're ahead of the game. we're never proactive. We're always reactive, and it's cost us a ton of equity.
Well, here's the scenario, I've thought for the better part of this season that they were not going to make a change. In the last week, my opinion has kind of shifted a little more towards they are going to make a change. I've said I don't know. I'm not reporting anything. I'm just trying to gather what I can get from this corner and that corner, and figure out some commonalities and all that. But I think I'm not sure it's a scenario where he wins the tournament. I mean, I could see a scenario where they say, "Hey, he's improved," and if the buyout is exorbitant, you've already got an AD out there making the case that, hey, let's, instead of buying out a coach, let's put this money towards NIL and give him a chance, which I get, but that's not going to fly with anybody right now other than, maybe a small group of people. Yeah, I would just love to know the truth of that number and how this contract was or was not arrived upon with whose approval and all those things. That I feel like that would tell me a lot.
Well, I guess, Chris, I was going to ask you before you kind of answered it there, but okay, if for some strange reason they don't fire Jerry Stackhouse, what does Candace Lee come out and say? Anything? Or is it just Jerry's still our coach? Will there be a press conference in support of him?
No, I don't think there'd be a press conference. I think it'd be her MO is usually to put something out on Twitter. It'd be a statement, I think, that would say, maybe she'd go as far as to say, I realize this. I doubt she'd say that. I was going to say maybe realize this isn't popular to everybody, but say, hey, we need unity here. We need support of our coach. It's the NIL era. We need this, we need that. He's our coach going forward. Now, here's the thing. I do wonder if they are indecisive or change their mind and say they decide to retain him. And my guess, again, none of this is reporting. I don't want to have somebody take a slice of this on Twitter or cut up part of the video and just take an isolated part of what I'm saying and make into a quote one way or the other. My stance is I do not know. I got a lot of stuff that's floating out there. Common sense would tell you he's lost almost all public support. The program has not done well. They're having a horrible year. Usually that's time to move on. Even a place like Vanderbilt is a breaking point. Yeah, my guess is if it's a retention situation, she either didn't do anything until she feels the pressure. She puts out a quick statement on Twitter saying he's our basketball coach. He's got my full support. Now, what I question is if it's something like the women's team where they decide to keep him and then a bunch of kids hit the portal, their retention rates are awful. That's what got Stephanie White fired, from my understanding. Do you see a scenario where they make a decision, the bottom falls out one way or another, then they're like, all right, now we got to move on. But then you missed the window where all the good coaches are gone. So then what do you do?
Yeah.
And there will be coaches interested in this, but you can't just stake yourself to Vanderbilt and say, hey, I'm taking that one come hell or high water, because you don't know what they're going to do.
That's exactly right. I don't know, Chris. I'm out of opinions on it. It's all speculation at this point, and I just wanted what's best for. Like I said, when you have season ticket sales around the 5,000 mark for Memorial Gym, that means you've lost half of your fan base, literally half of your fan base in Memorial Gym.
They have to do something forward-facing that shows the fan base that they care, because that tweet last weekend has just drawn the battle lines a little bit more. It is entrenched every stereotype about them being out of touch of this or that. And I mean, it was like, I didn't think it could have gotten much worse, but that did it.
It did. It was the powder keg. And
yeah,
that's just so irresponsible.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed by it, by being a Vanderbilt employee. and loving that place as much as I do. I'm embarrassed that a former athlete would do that.
Yeah. All right. I think we've exhausted the realm of topics where people wanted us to go for the most part. Any parting thoughts? Thank God we got some good baseball this weekend. Thank God for that.
Yes, absolutely. Excited about that. And I want one little nugget here for the women's team. I saw where that we're not in the tournament, so to speak. Well, now listen, never has there ever been an SEC women's team not make the NCAA tournament that didn't have 8 wins. So if they beat Missouri or Georgia in these last 2 games, if they don't get in, then I'm going conspiracy theory if there's something against Vanderbilt, because never, ever has there never been in the 30 years of 35 years or whatever it is of women's basketball, ever been a team 8-8 or better not make the SEC tournament. I mean, not make the NCAA.
I will give you a little bit of a counterpoint, and I don't follow women's basketball enough to know
Right.
whatever. But I was looking early because like they ran off a lot of wins early. I'm like, is this just a situation where they're beating bad teams, and kind of like Ole Miss did with the men. What am I looking at in conference play when they get there? And I think it's oh, good grief, I can picture it in my head. But there's search women's basketball rankings, computer rankings, and you'll find the one. In fact, I'll find it right now, and I'll tell you exactly what I'm looking at rather than speculate. And basically, even when they were winning, the ranking was in the high 40s, low 50s. And I looked, and they were going to be slight underdogs in a lot of the SEC games, but it's Kenneth Massey. That's who it is. In fact, this is kind of like the closest thing to a Ken Pomeroy they've got for women's basketball. They're 46 in that today. But the thing I noticed was that other than South Carolina at the top, and then LSU in the top 10, there was a distinct absence of SEC teams. In fact, I'm looking, this is Massey today, South Carolina number 1, LSU 10. You got no other teams in the top 20. The next team is Tennessee at 28, followed by Ole Miss at 30, Alabama at 32, Texas A&M at 44, Vanderbilt at 46. This feels like some of the down periods in men's basketball in the SEC where you'd see the league, would get Kentucky and some and maybe 2-3 other teams in, and it would be, maybe one team with a 1 or 2 seed and a bunch of teams in that middling range. And that feels like the period. And again, it's just based on one computer. That's all I got to go on. This kind of feels like that sort of situation with the women's.
Well, again, I can remember, and I did follow women's basketball. My sister loved it, so I'd go to games with her when I could. And it used to be Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Auburn, and Georgia were the 4 teams. And everybody else, you beat them double digits just about every game. So the league wasn't strong then. And every 8 wins made it. So unless they've moved the goalpost and moved them big time, you can't tell me that one time out of 37 years, you're going to have an outlier. That's crazy. Vanderbilt's done.
Yeah,
one more.
I'm just looking at this and going, there's about 5 teams, 4 to 5 teams that would be based on this would seem to be in the tournament, and then you get to a whole host of bubble teams with Vandy, A&M, Auburn, Arkansas, whatever. Again, I don't follow it the way you do, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. So
that would be 3 of those teams, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I would value your opinion on that more than I would, but when I want to check and just say, hey, give me a quick glance and give me the score, what's it look like? That's where I go. So, any parting thoughts, Luke?
That's it. Ready for baseball?
Yes, always ready for baseball. Ready for ice cream. Ready for laundry.
By the way, did I see Ben Bowden's with the Braves right now?
Let me look that up.
Look, I think he pitched yesterday. Look it up.
He is with the Atlanta Braves. How did I miss that?
Yeah. And Penn Murphy's still with them, right?
I think so. Didn't they get him in a trade last year?
Yeah, they did. And then I thought they released him after they obtained him, but now he's still with them. He's on the 40-man.
MLB.com says Atlanta Braves.
Yeah. So we got two Vandy boys with Atlanta again.
Okay, they claimed him off waivers from the Mets in November. That's the story. So yeah, Atlanta's got they retooled that bullpen. So we'll see if those guys can make it. I mean, hey, there's a lot of value. Just hang around, be good in AAA. You'll get your shot eventually. So
yes.
Yeah, we'll do this again next week. Billy Derrick usually joins us. Billy Derrick texted me just a minute ago saying my alarm did not go off. So that's why we have no Billy today.
Okay, Billy, you got to handle at both ends.
He says he thinks his alarm is broken. So we'll let him figure that out. But in any case, just me and you today. Enjoyed it as always.
Yes.
Luke, thank you for your contributions and your help here. And we will barn something crazy. Be back to do this again next week. All right, we thank our sponsors. Those guys again: Wash House, Murfreesboro Pure Milk Studio, Anchor Impact, Sutherland and Belk, Maynard Nexus Government Contracts Group. For Luke Wyatt, I'm Chris Lee. This is the Vandy Sports Podcast.